got to change that picture. Oh. Okay. Thanks. All right, colleagues, I think we're going to get started here. Welcome, welcome. All right. Good afternoon and welcome to San Diego, colleagues. My name is Chris Naive. I'm the Associate Vice President for Community Engagement here at the University of San Diego. And I'm also with the Karen and Tal Mulvaney Center for Community Awareness and Social Action, which is part of the Mission Integration Division. And I am honored to be on the board for IARSLCE. Thank you all for coming to San Diego, and for those of you who are celebrating the high holidays that start today, Happy New Year. And with over 15 countries represented, we know many of you traveled near and far to be here. In fact, our illustrious chair, Dr. Darren Lortan, traveled from Durban University, South Africa, came in this weekend, texted him, I said, Darren, when are you coming in? He said, oh, I'm coming in a little after 12 on Sunday. I said, oh, that's perfect. And then I didn't hear from him. And then I realized that I had a conflict. It was my 20th wedding anniversary on Sunday. And so I was in a bit of a jam. And, you know, it was a pretty easy decision. I think you would agree. I mean, we've had 20 of those. I mean, I imagine we'd have a 21st, but it's not often that we host a conference and get to pick up my good friend. So then he text messages me a couple days later, and he says, Chris, I get in after 12 on midnight. So he let me off the hook, and I'm pleased to report that I will be having a 21st anniversary. So, you know, it's association gatherings like this that remind us that we all come from different time zones, and so I appreciate that you all made it here. You know, a core tenet in our field is to really develop reciprocal and mutually beneficial relationships, and IARSLCE tries to embody this value. And if the last 4 years has reminded us of anything, it's that we do not do this work alone. And we are fortunate to have such strong ties. And those ties are reflected through the sponsors like the American Council on Education, the Carnegie Foundation Elective Classification, Tulane University through their role in being the administrative home of IARSLCE, GivePulse, Peace Corps, and the Place-Based Justice Network and their strong network of campuses, as well as the 25 institutional members of IARSLCE, Alliance of Engaged Colleges and Universities, who really have helped make this gathering possible. Co-led by Dr. Elaine Ward. Elaine, are you here? Raise your hand. There's Elaine. So if you want to know more, please grab Elaine or myself or any board member wearing a pin. We're happy to talk more about that. Want to take a chance to thank our California partners, the University of California, San Diego Teaching and Learning Commons, led by Dr. Rochelle Smar, and Lead California, led by our very own Dr. Elena Queda, who will be recognized this week with a well-deserved IARSLCE Distinguished Career Award. And we also have to celebrate the folks that made this conference happen. Much gratitude to Tiana Nobile, Rochelle Smar, and the rest of the conference committee and the board of directors. They have been hard at work behind the scenes to make sure this conference is a success. Would also like to take the chance to thank my colleagues at USD, the Mulvaney Center, the College Corps team, Mission Integration, catering, hospitality, the Kroc Institute, operations team. They have all been working really hard to make sure that you can enjoy this week. And you will also be hearing from my wonderful colleagues here in a little bit. But before we do that, one thing that we talked about as a board is that sometimes we feel this work, you know, you have to put on some armor, right? Like the work is always being challenged, there's always conflict, the work is under attack. And this week, our hope is that you can take some of that armor off. You know, go ahead and hang it up. And let this week be a place for reflection and sharing and being with friends in a different kind of space that's generative. So that's our hope for you on behalf of the board. So with that, you'll be hearing from USD, my USD colleagues, who I think as institutional leaders kind of reflect that value of how do we embody this work? How do we embody our values, especially when it feels like the work that we are doing is so scrutinized in ways that are in conflict with who we are. You'll be hearing from USD's tribal liaison, Sami Waitima, our president, Dr. Jim Harris, and the Dean of School of Education and today's keynote speaker, Dr. Kimberly White-Smith, who, let me just quickly say, is a homegirl of Marisol Morales. And when it was announced that Kimberly White-Smith was coming to USD, I texted Marisol, I was like, what you got? She's like, I think she just put like a bomb and then like, fist bump. So I thought that was good. These three folks, along with many of my colleagues here at USD, are just transformational leaders. They understand the intersection of all our work, the work that we do, and we're happy to host you all here, and I'm so proud to be working with my colleagues here at USD. And I would be remiss not to say that, the theme of this conference is intersections. And we feel that the San Diego border region perfectly reflects those intersections, right? We're just 30 minutes north of the San Diego-Tijuana border region, and next to Mexico. We are on the unceded lands of the Kumeyaay Nation, and we are in a region where there are a lot of sovereign tribes. So, with that, we understand that the intersections understands that we kind of dive into the truth of that, so we can kind of co-create together based on truth that can inform our decision making. So I'm appreciative that you all are here to share the work that you all do, and I'm so excited that my colleagues will be able to share their insights and reflections. So with that, I'll invite Sami Waitima. Oh. Before I do that, I do want to introduce Sami. Sami S. Waitima is a community-raised and inspired member of the Hopi tribe, B.S. Kusyum, from the village of Musang Nyovi. Ms. Waitima is the tribal liaison with the USD's Office of the Tribal Liaison within the Center for Inclusion and Diversity. Ms. Waitima considers herself a lifetime learner and educator with a passion to serve and support unique populations in both urban and rural settings. As an educational leader, tribal liaison, and consultant facilitator, she acknowledges opportunities to listen and work collaboratively with stakeholder groups as the first step in engaging in true relationships that create meaningful partnerships and build capacity for sustainable community-led efforts.
Awesome. Thanks. I'm glad that everyone's here today. I'm going to put my glasses on first and see everybody. Welcome. Welcome to the unceded ancestral lands of the Kumeyaay. Ne Sami Waitiwa yan matiwa, ne Sima na yan Hopi matiwa, ne Piikyasyam, ne Masang ne Fanka, ne Kumeyaay territory epgita. My name is Sami Waitiwa. I'm Hopi from the village of Masang Navi and a member of the Corn Clan. I am a visitor to Kumeyaay territory and have served as the tribal liaison for 2 academic years. In our ancestral languages, our expressions are alive and can change meaning or action just by tone, gender, context, such as presence or audience, and ceremony. As we open up this day with the intent to recognize the land we are on and introduce our presence to the energies that we're aware of and all that we cannot see, I want to make sure to open with purpose to the land's first language. Kumeyaay exchanges are prompted with hauka. This means to greet or wake the fire within. So you'd think of this as meeting or greeting someone with great intention, individual or collective purpose, strong determination, and or pure connection. This morning, I'm going to share a little experience. This morning, I woke up about 3:30 and moved through 3 meditations or flows of thoughts, and I ended up visualizing and connecting with other parts of myself, my culture, and recent experiences that include grief and loss. Ceremony and being in community. This changed 90% of this welcome, but it's a tribute to the things I've lost, who I am, and where I come from. By 7 o'clock, I had a heartfelt conversation with a dear friend, and I was able to read this, what it became after 3:30, and asked for feedback. And this person is from my community. And as I said, to begin this, our language is alive and it can change context. And there was a long pause after I finished, and the expression was, "Lo mahinta." By our conversation for about an hour and 15 minutes after that, I can translate that to beautiful, wonderfully said, purposefully crafted, strong meaning, with the emphasis that these things aren't always said or thought of by people with no connection to the land or culture. Pride for what needs to be said and done, responsibility with healthy risk-taking. Hisatsin moi itatatskot. Our people from time immemorial, this land, our connection to the land. We don't do anything in life alone. Everything and everyone comes together. We all have great purpose, including you. This speaks to our clans, our clanships, all the natural elements. All of our contributions matter. As you go about today, center that as a place to lead from as you meet new people and welcome old friends. You all have purpose and have been brought to this space by universal energies and will leave with some sense of how you carry it forward. So now here's the rewrite. From your first moments of wakefulness, an alarm or your internal clock sent signals through your body, channeling a melody of synapses across all your organs. Blood flow increases, stirring the mind and sensory experiences. On this land, first inhabited by the Kumeyaay and relatives, imagine first light and natural sounds to wake villages, the changeover of night watchmen to warriors of the day. Every member of the village, stretching limbs, taking deep breaths, stepping out into misty mornings of thick marine layers. Prayers offered, hunters and foragers preparing for the day, fires started for cooking, babies left to sleep or suckle, while others flow into chores of the day. Today, our lives look much different. Our methods of preparation can be haphazard or meticulous. Where a village once woke with shared energy, we start our days mostly independent, as single households, with a partner, with roommates, or a family all our own. Within the walls of our choosing, the closest resemblance to the days of a village stirring at first light might be the unhoused, waking in their makeshift communities. The first drink of water for a village before our time, they used the land and natural resources to create vessels, to haul water, and drink from. While this exists in some tribal communities or households today, like my own, you woke and either turned on a faucet or twisted open a bottle of water, most of the work already done for you. That first taste of water directly from a river or spring, it's refreshing. Today, large cities and counties benefit from extraction, sourcing water from tribal nations on poorly negotiated treaties and water rights, leaving many communities to haul tainted water, high levels of arsenic and other harmful contaminants used daily for drinking, cooking, bathing, irrigating. Fast forward to this moment. You walked here on curated grounds, eyes scanning vibrant plots sown in every color. Water flows freely in fountains and into waterbed or flower beds, through irrigation tracts fed by water lines all across campus. Depending on your current mindset, or you intentionally prepared for today's opening remarks, you thought about this land's first people, perhaps how deeply you understand the history of this nation, how well you know or are connected to the local community? Imagine the landscape of Kumeyaay territory, San Diego County. Some of you came with great energy for the experience, from the land into waters that appear limitless. Whether you take time to look out into the sea or gaze across horizons and mountain ranges during your visit, you're in a place with timeless identity and rooted belonging for coastal tribal nations, relatives, and ancestral neighbors. Understand that the nature of the coast, with all its life and resources, from the deep sea to the mountains and landscapes in between, maintained a kinship with entire civilizations, living in reciprocity with all forms of life and cultural ways. Today, we know coastal lands have been the gateway for travel by sea. These lands are less traveled by their first peoples and lack stewardship with reciprocity. Progress in a growing society means we promote development and extraction over living as kin to the land and sea. During your stay, stand at any outer ridge of the University of San Diego, and you will see buildings for miles, hear cars rushing, feel the ocean breeze. But unless you know the history and you pause to remember, it's easy to forget the Kumeyaay. Let the abundance of moisture in the air empower you as it does our plant relatives. Let the rolling tides of the deep sea be a reminder that there is no us without nature and its resources. As you look at the clouds of life dancing high above or hovering across the coast into mountain ranges, let that be your time for reflection, setting intentions, meditation, or prayer. Let us be the vessels, ocean air filling our lungs, taking in knowledge, feeding our hearts with the energy to steward the land and create humble connections through responsible inquiry, to be inspired to know more about First People and the lands where you live, visit, and recreate. Today, let's remember that every stitch of clothing, all your accessories, the pages and resources shared today in print or electronic communication are all the products of living energies on this planet, harvested and harnessed for our work across sectors. Greet your neighbors today and know that they come with their own history and lived experiences. Get to know their passions and pursuits. Find the time to pause and reflect, to share gratitude with conference hosts, and especially the bees within this field of flowers. Everybody here. From our groundsmen to catering, staff, faculty, and administrators, every breath of life for the next few days is the pollen that will carry ideas and opportunities to feed our collective work, families, communities, and generations beyond. Ascoli, I have great gratitude for the gift of a Hopi life, the opportunity to be part of the prayers of Kumeyaay's past. In this lifetime experience, and as your partner in community engagement, tribal relations, and honoring the original stewards of the land and resources, the future is Indigenous. Welcome to the University of San Diego.
Good afternoon. Thank you. For the second time in as many days, I'm holding back tears. If I'm successful, good for me. If I'm unsuccessful, good for me. My name is Darren Lawton. This year, I've had the very special privilege of being led by the Board of Directors of the International Association for Research on Service Learning and Community Engagement, IARSLCE, as its chair. Like all previous chairs, I've had the pleasure of serving in this role for the immediate past year. I have, however, been engaged with IARSLCE as a member since 2016. And I've served its board since 2018, after some not-so-gentle persuasion and encouragement from a good friend. I won't mention her name to protect her identity. I recall saying several times that I would think about it, followed by a firm no at least twice. And all it took was just one reluctant maybe to open the door to a journey that has been as much fun for me as it has been fulfilling. 2 years ago, I was gently encouraged and persuaded one more time to consider serving the board and its members as vice chair. The reluctance returned in leaps and bounds, and after a month of contemplation and some prayer, I answered the call with a phrase that has often followed moments of such contemplation for me. If you think that I am able, then I am willing and hopefully ready. Who knew that an invitation to a stranger to join friends and I for dinner in Makanda, South Africa, during a symposium held at the Rhodes University, and randomly sitting next to another familiar stranger during a board retreat in Albuquerque, New Mexico, would have led to me standing here before you today. I mention this, long story, because there are a number of vacancies on the board of IARSLCE. And a familiar stranger may approach you to consider serving the association as a board member. If so, please give it some thought. Unfortunately, you may not have a month like I had from time to time, because the call for nominations closes soon. I'm happy to inform you I don't know the exact date, but just ask anybody wearing the pin and they'll tell you. I would like to segue into acknowledging those among us who have answered the call to serve in the affirmative like I did. May I ask all currently serving board members to stand, please. Thank you for the spontaneity. I was going to read. Would you please give them a round of applause? May I also ask if all previously serving board members among us would stand? And now I'm going to say something that only in the United States of America I can say, knowing exactly what it means when people usually use this expression. And from where I come from, I'm adding you to the list. Thank you for your service. Thank you. Okay. I am delighted, in spite of indications to the contrary, to welcome you all to the 24th Annual Conference of IARSLCE, whose mission is to promote research on service learning and community engagement. In order to highlight our mission, intersections was selected as this year's theme. The theme of the conference serves to emphasize the importance of creating and exploring the diverse spaces in which this fertile field continues to yield many harvests. Within the field itself, and in other fields with which community engagement intersects. In these spaces, the lives and livelihoods of role players are drawn from many countries, cultures, and contexts in pursuit of and or promotion of humanity. IARSLCE conferences, in my view, exemplify such spaces. We welcome you all to a space of transformative dialogue that we remain confident will reshape the landscape of service learning and community engagement. In our quest to explore the spaces of intersection, we embark on a journey that seeks to hear and recognize the voices, contributions, and roles of our communities, without whom we probably wouldn't have a field. We need to think about that. And the other thing that we need to think about that I heard in a conference a couple of months ago is all of us first started off in community, as part of community. No matter where you go from there, you'll always be part of community. If I may be so brave as to declare that the extent to which this conference will be successful is contingent upon the degree to which we encourage an exploration of the wide range of approaches that SLCE exists around the world, and to foster collaboration and new ideas to be shared. To this end, I encourage you to consider participating in at least one, just one, of the sessions in which the presenters are from another part of the world. Just one. For those of you from other parts of the world like myself, you've got lots of choice for people from the US. So just enjoy the smokescreen. The rest of us, here. Oh, by the way, it was only when I first set foot on the land of the free and the home of the brave 30 years ago that I realized that I have an accent. I hope that so far you are coping. Otherwise, I might have to try my southern drawl. We have at least 15 countries represented here this morning. If your interests overlap with the presenter, introduce yourself. It may be the beginning of a beautiful friendship, which may or may not lead you to being asked to join the IARSLCE board, and possibly welcoming participants to a future conference as I am doing now. It's my pleasure to welcome everyone to IARSLCE, the conference 2024, and I look forward to the many conversations that will take place over the next few days. It's now my happy privilege, and I hope I get all this right, to introduce the president of USD, Dr. James Harris. James T. Harris III became the University of San Diego's fourth president on August 3rd, 2015. During his time as president, USD has been recognized as a top 5 program nationally for promoting public service and has received additional recognition for its sustainability efforts and the work to enhance diversity and inclusion. Jim is a civically minded leader and educator and has worked closely with cross-discipline teams to spearhead new civic and community engagements connecting academic environments with intractable issues faced by society. Jim has been the recipient of many awards and honors, including leadership awards from the NAACP, the Urban League, for his work on defending civil rights. In 2023, he was recognized by LEAD California, formerly California Campus Compact, where he served as the chair of the board, with the Western Region Continuums of Service Engaged Presidential Award. Earlier in his career, he was named by the John Templeton Foundation as one of the top 50 character-building presidents in America. Please join me in welcoming him to the podium.
Darren, thank you for your kind remarks, and thank you for taking on the leadership of this important organization. I just want to say to my colleague, Sami, beautiful, such a beautiful. If you've ever had the opportunity, perhaps you've known Sami before if you're one of my colleagues, but I typically go in the morning and I walk around campus, I go into the canyon. And one day Sami asked if she could join me, and it changed my entire perspective of how I walk through the canyon, what I appreciate. So thank you so much, Sami, it's beautiful. I wish to thank everybody for being here, and also to thank you for ensuring that community engagement transforms higher education institutions so that we may fulfill our promise as anchor institutions and that are all dedicated to the common good. And so on behalf of the University of San Diego, I welcome you to Princeton Review says we're the most beautiful campus. You can have your own opinion about that. And in San Diego, we like to say we're the finest city. So welcome to the most beautiful campus in the finest city. We're proud to host you and to celebrate the good work that you're doing across the nation and across the world. It's really a remarkable organization. And it's wonderful to see so many, I won't say old friends, but good friends and collaborators and maybe co-conspirators over the years. And dare I say, and maybe I paraphrase the late, great John Lewis, that together we've all caused some good trouble. One of the things that drew me to the University of San Diego many years ago in 2015 was our commitment to public service, to community service, to place-based initiatives. And when I came here, I knew I needed to have a conversation with the person who really drives this, and that is Chris Naive, our Associate VP for Community Engagement. And as you know, Chris has been the previous chair of this organization. And in my humble opinion, I don't know there's anyone in the country who does a better job or is more the living embodiment of this work and the work as a humble servant leader than Chris Naive. How about a round of applause for Chris? And Darren, thank you for saving his marriage. Christine is wonderful, so we're So Chris almost, he thought he had made career suicide when he brought me to campus and he said, Jim, let's go see the community. So in my third day on the job, he said, let's go into Linda Vista. I said, that'd be great. I thought maybe he'd pick me up, and it was an 85-degree day in August. He said, well, let's walk. So we walked from here. I got my suit on. I was from Philadelphia, so I was still wearing suit and tie and everything at the time. And we walked all the way out and saw our partners, had a conversation. I think the community partners just remember me as the big guy who sweats all the time. But in that moment, I could see the relationship Chris had, John and others who are part of our team from the Mulvaney Center, and our faculty members who do this incredible work, our commitment to community engagement, place-based justice, sustainability, and that at that time, what was a new concept to us, change-making. We've been named one of the Ashoka Changemaker campuses. What that led to is very quickly, as every president has to do, we put together a strategic plan, and who was part of that conversation but Chris. And we also came up to one of our priorities. One of our 5 priorities as an institution was to work as an anchor institution, and we had the Board of Trustees approve that. And I'm happy to report, and we selected 2024 as our date for the completion of that first strategic plan because that represents the 75th anniversary of the university. So we're celebrating our 75th anniversary this year. And that plan, we have a number of initiatives. You're going to hear about a few of them a little bit later on. But now we're preparing for the next plan. And how long should that be? And guess who's right at the front of it? And now has actually moved into the planning process is Chris, and also his colleague, my colleague, Michael Lovett-Collier. So no matter what we focus on as we look to the future, I will guarantee you that this institution will focus on community engagement, publicly engaged research, community partnerships, incorporating service elements into our academic coursework, and the work about which all of you care so deeply will also be woven into our DNA here at USD. I thought about what I might say also, and I just, given the environment in the United States this time, I was reminded of a politician from the 1980s by the name of Thomas Skip O'Neill. He was the Speaker of the House of Representatives from Boston, and he coined the phrase that all politics are local. And what's famous in American politics is that he had a relationship with then President Ronald Reagan, and they both fiercely defended their own views about the future of the nation, but they yet famously came together, supposedly over a scotch in the White House, where they talked about their agendas and tried to move them forward. And while you can say their friendships were part political gamesmanship, they're also part of desire to actually get something done. They put aside their party differences to find solutions, and there seemed to have been a level of respect for each other in demonstrating something that we're missing today, a commitment to seeing the basic human dignity of the other. Neither demonized the other, and while they had radically different views of the future of the United States, they shared one thing in common, and that was to focus on the public good. As leaders, all of you, as leaders of a place-based movement, everyone here at this conference today knows firsthand that all politics are local for us as well. The needs of San Diego residents are different than the needs of residents in Minneapolis or Miami, in South Africa, in Seattle, Chicago, Philadelphia, wherever it may be. And the needs within each of those locations will widely differ depending on what neighborhood you're in. So for example, here in Linda Vista, have very different needs than we do in Logan Heights, or what's called Barrio Logan, or in City Heights, or any number of our other distinctly unique neighborhoods of San Diego. And as a Catholic, a contemporary Catholic university located on an international border, we have a commitment and responsibility to understand the needs of our neighbors. And key to that is, before seeking to be understood about our goals and objectives, that we know place-based anchor institutions and what they need, and to listen to them. And we know that takes place up in Linda Vista in our community garden. It takes place in Barrio Logan at the Monarch School for the unhoused and homeless youth. It takes place 15 miles south of here in Tijuana, Mexico, where our faculty and students work with refugees and immigrants. And we do this because of our commitment to our Catholic values and Catholic social teachings. And we do this because of our commitment to serving the others among us. And we do this because of our commitment to democratic values. We believe that reciprocal democratic partnerships in our community are what will make us stronger, that embracing the refugees and people who are different will make us better. And we know ultimately that higher education has the potential to be the most significant force in our society. We understand that by committing to place-based service learning, we're preparing the next generation of compassionate service leaders. American higher education has always had a focus on public good. We often forget how we were founded in American higher education, starting with the original colonial college, Harvard. At that time, it was a faith-based organization. Colonists knew what they were producing. They wanted clergy and lay leaders for the local community. In one of the earliest documents, which is called New England's First Fruits, they described the primary purpose of that college at that time, and that was to perpetuate our values into the future. So today, we need to return to that principle. You all know this. We need to advance the values we hold dear: inclusive excellence, equity, empathy for others, democracy, social justice, and respecting the dignity of every human being, including the immigrant and the refugee. This is why at USD, we've worked with the International Rescue Committee to pilot a program to house refugees on our campus during the summer months. I was sharing with Tim, with my colleague, that we actually didn't want to make that public because we were fearful of what might happen in our community or who might attack those individuals. We also have important work that's being done in our law school clinic. So we have a clinic for immigration law. Our work here in the Kroc School Peace on justice in Mexico, our cross-border collaborations through university ministry. This is hard work. It's heavy lifting. And I know every institution represented here today across the 15 nations is doing similar amazing work. And this is tough stuff. And I know sometimes it feels impossible to continue to do this work. But we need to stick together and support each other and find a common path forward. And that's why we all have gathered here today and why we're so happy to be hosting you. Always remember that you, each of you, are the caretakers in the United States, particularly of our republic, that you understand that all politics are local, and that what we do is not only good for our communities, but also for our democracy. We know our role in developing future generation of servant leaders, like the 200 plus students, you've seen a number of them here at USD. They're part of the California Community Corps, who someday will be in your roles and will be in leadership roles in these very same communities. My hope, my prayer, my desire is that your time here on our campus provides you with good ideas that you can take home, and that you feel re-energized and rejuvenated from spending time in our community. But I also want you to look around and recognize, again, you are not alone in this work. We know the politics of division and hate that are at work in our country today, and we're not naive about what is going on. But we know we need to continue to cause good trouble as we work to confront humanity's most urgent challenges. A year ago, we went through a process on campus and included multiple constituents to talk about our mission, our values, and our goal. And we completely reshaped our mission, approved by the Board of Trustees, to be more specifically a statement about our role as an anchor institution, that we're a contemporary Catholic institution anchored on an international border, dedicated to creating a more inclusive, sustainable, and hopeful world. However, we didn't stop there. We wrote a vision statement, which I think is quite bold, and it ends with these three ideals. that we all must aspire to achieve this, to foster peace, to work for justice, and to lead with love. Yes, lead with love. Please know how much I admire and gather from the strength that you bring me and all the good work that you're doing. I know you're leading with love. I remain optimistic about our future because I know each of you is in your own community doing amazing work, the heavy lifting, and bringing about positive change. In a moment, you're going to hear from one of my incredible colleagues, Dr. Kimberly White-Smith, who's going to share with you what we're doing in our School of Leadership and Educational Sciences. This is a leader who gets it, understands what it means for a university to be an anchor in our institute, in our community, and also someone who someday will be the president of another institution that's an anchor. I'm pretty convinced. At least I'm trying to move her in that direction. So once again, welcome. Thank you for inspiring me and for inspiring others, and may God bless you in your work.
Wow. So the wow is, it's special, listening to a president say things about the people that work with him. So informed, pushing you, knowing that he believes that somewhere out there is a university for you to lead, and that when you do, hopefully we'll be invited to the celebrations, that the connection to this university and its president was genuine. Stuff that gets hard to fake. Thank you, President Harris. It's now my pleasure to welcome our opening keynote speaker, Dr. Kimberly White-Smith, who I met a few minutes ago. Immediately impressed with her. Number one, she's been to Africa. Number two, she's been to South Africa. Number three, she's been to Durban. And all of you, next year, could be impressing me by saying exactly the same thing. Sorry, I couldn't overlook that. Wow, she knows what a bunny chow is. Whew. Anyway. Dr. White-Smith is the Dean and Professor of SOLEs, or SOLEs here at USD, with over 2 decades dedicated to enhancing urban schooling, nonprofit management, and community partnership. Dean White-Smith's commitment to academic and community justice for marginalized people shines through innovative learning environments and practices. A prolific author, her works delve deeply into teacher and student learning, equity, and the nuanced experiences of Black women higher education leaders. Dr. White-Smith was named one of the top 50 Black leaders of influence by the San Diego Business Journal and the Black Chamber of Commerce in 2023, and was the 2024 recipient of the prestigious AACTE Edward C. Pomeroy Award. Dr. Smith's dynamic leadership enriches educational discourse and shapes the fabric of future learning environments, embodying the essence of transformative and impactful change. It's my pleasure, and I hope you'll join me in welcoming her to the stage.
Good morning, colleagues. Can you hear me? Yes. Okay. I wouldn't be me unless I started my talk out with some mind-body work. Because my colleague Chris, when he first came up here, he talked about how challenging, how difficult this work is for us. The toll it takes on our minds, our souls, our spirits, our bodies. So I want to invite you to do this exercise with me. You don't have to stand, but it's something that I do before I walk into rooms when I'm feeling really intimidated. It's something I learned when I started practicing yoga. It's called tapping, and many cultures around the world engage in tapping. So let's start by tapping our heads.
speak in the microphone anyway. The tension builds up in our heads, right? We get little headaches, we have to let it go. Let's tap our foreheads. That's what our third eye is, our intuition, right? Let's wake up our intuition so we'll know what to do, what to say. Tap our mouths so that we could speak into the people, into the communities that we serve. Our jaw, it sometimes gets tight, and we need to release that tension. Our hearts, so that we can be open to what it is that we need to be open to in order to do this work. Our shoulders, so that we recognize that we stand on the foundation of our ancestors, the people who have come before us, who have opened doors that allowed us the privilege to be here, right? Our hands to do this work. Our arms, and recognize that we're all differently abled. Our mobility is different and challenged in new and different ways every day. Our legs, and the blessing that in order to do this work, we get up and put one foot in front of the other until it's done. And so it is. Oh, you already talked to him. Oh, my goodness. I'm honored to be here today to discuss this topic that lies at the heart of my work and passion: the transformative power of service learning and community engagement in creating more equitable and inclusive communities. As the Dean of the School of Leadership and Education Sciences here at the beautiful, so I've been told, University of San Diego, I have witnessed firsthand the profound impact that education can have on our work, on our society, when rooted in community collaboration. Darren, thank you so much for the beautiful introduction. And when we talk about all of our accomplishments, it's easy to sometimes overlook the journey, the challenges, the struggles that happen along the way that allowed us the space to be here. So for me, it's important not only to talk about where I've been or where I'm going, but where I'm from. Because where I'm from has driven this work for me. I consider myself a Black mother scholar. I have a beautiful 20, soon to be 21, I'm pushing it, year-old sophomore here at the University of San Diego. I am from South Central Los Angeles, West Side. I grew up in the same neighborhood as O'Shea Jackson. If you know, then you know. I was a foster kid who had the wonderful and beautiful opportunity to then be adopted by an older Black couple who were grandparents and had enough space in their heart for myself and for my brother, who was not biologically related to me. We were then, unfortunately, orphaned very young at 16, but the profound impact that they had on us along the way is what really supported us in being successful, and I'll talk a little bit about that. My mother's name was Cleopatra White. Cleopatra. And, you know, it's interesting because someone like myself, you know, I ended up going to school at the University of California at Berkeley. I didn't even know what Berkeley was. I didn't even know where it was. I had no idea where I was going. And it's interesting because when you get into positions like you become, you know, in higher ed, you become a dean, you get to meet these people who have whole different experiences and lives. And I walk into rooms now, and I have to remember, it doesn't matter if I grew up in a country club. It doesn't matter that I have never walked on a golf course. It doesn't matter, I don't even know what pickleball is. It doesn't matter, because what I remember is that I am the daughter of Cleopatra White, who grew up, in 1919 she was born, and grew up in Texarkana, Arkansas, who endured Jim Crow, and who taught me that no matter what I do, that I need to remember that I come from royalty, that Cleopatra was a queen, and just remember who you are. This was supposed to be her job, fostering kids, right? So she was supposed to make money from this. When my brother was labeled uneducable by the social worker, uneducable, at 6 years old. 6 years old. And by the way, this labeling continues to this day. In 2004, Congress recognized the mislabeling of African American kids in this country. They are mislabeled at the rate of all other subgroups combined. It's astounding. It's astounding. But when we got that label, my mother was like, took us out of public school and put us in Catholic school, 1st through 12th grade. And even though she did not live to see us graduate from Catholic school, from high school, I know that she knows in her spirit and her soul that we were successful. So this kid who was labeled uneducable, who was not supposed to stand a chance, who they were only going to put in school to learn how to have life skills, went on to become a productive member of society, to be a part of a community, to be a father, to be a grandfather, to be an active member of his local union. And so what I'm expressing to you all is what we do is important. It's extremely important because it is transformative in ways beyond our own understanding. And so I was raised to be an activist and a fighter, and I happen to be a scholar as a result of the work that I do. Let's talk a little bit about the global context of this work. One of the things that I'm going to introduce you to is the idea that came as a result of my initial meeting with someone at the San Diego Foundation, a member of our community here. Her name is Pamela Gray Payton. And what we decided, or what we discovered together, is that service learning, engaged and grounded in community contexts, has the power to bring diverse communities together, to be able to bridge gaps and provide opportunities for students, but also for us to learn from those communities, to create an assets-based approach to the communities that we're serving and understand how we can problem solve together. So our initiative is called the Black InGenius Initiative. It was born out of this idea of mislabeling of our students in the local San Diego area. And so this provides an opportunity for any student who experiences this level of disproportionality that we happen to see in our schools, the opportunity to engage with students across the region, to be exposed to STEM and STEAM initiatives given by people who look like them. It gives them an opportunity to bring their caregivers to campus. This is something where the parents, the community members, the foster parents, those who've nominated our students get to come and talk about the ways in which they want to engage, what it is that they want to work on. What are the things that we can do with them, not to them? I want to talk a little bit about the idea of intersectional leadership. It's grounded in inclusive, our program, BiGI, is grounded in inclusive and intersectional leadership. By understanding the challenges faced by our students, as well as engaging directly with our local community, the BiGI program meets the needs and goals of all of those who support it. So let's talk a little bit about those barriers. We know from the research that cost and accessibility to high-quality education is a barrier. My mother went out and put her pennies together. She went back to work. She was retired. She was a grandmother in order to put us in school. So this is a barrier. Cultural capital. So understanding that those who are economically oppressed, depending on your immigration status, refugee status, that can be a barrier. So gender identity, sexual orientation. This one is a newer one, adverse childhood experiences and mental health challenges. It's become a hot topic since the pandemic, but it's something that those of us in education known it's been coming. And now we're giving out this new label, trauma. You got trauma, you got trauma, you got trauma, you got trauma. And we're using it as an excuse as to why we cannot do anything for our students. Instead of understanding, right, that neurodiversity, that understanding that things that we have been calling disabilities are actually different ways of thinking, different perspectives of the world. That we have been shrugging off gifts and gems and diamonds that have been given to us, right? And casting them aside. So understanding that things that have been barriers, are barriers, should be seen as assets. We also know from the research around neurodiversity that trauma can be healed. And we understand, because we work with the communities that we serve, that there are many cultural ways to actually solve this for our students. And then higher education preparedness, right? Actually having highly qualified teachers in the classroom is something that we struggle with in California. Over the next 10 years, we will have 20,000 empty seats in our schools, teachers that will be missing. So looking at the intersectionality in education, so neurodiversity, right? Race, gender, trauma, socioeconomic status are important considerations, right? We recognize and address the unique needs and challenges faced by our students with diverse background and experiences. We look to dismantle the silos that separate us between our higher ed folks here on campus and what we're experiencing in PK-12. Building ecosystems of supports and bridges for our students is a really important aspect of the BiGI program. And then really leaning into this idea of our community brings an assortment of assets. So adopting an intersectional and assets-based approach in education can help us better understand and support our students, right? Recognizing the unique strengths and experiences of each individual, each family, we can create a more inclusive, effective program. So let's talk about our community collaboration and collective impact. We work with a variety of different partners. So the San Diego Foundation is just one of our partners, but we work with school districts all over the region. Not only do we work with the school districts and bring their children to campus, not only do we work with families, but we also learn from the families and go back to the school districts and help them better understand what our families need in order for them to be successful. So this is a circle of support and learning and networking and collaboration. We also, and SLCE, happen to have the unique instance of having a nonprofit institute within our school. So not only do we train teachers, not only do we have an MFT program and a school counseling program for the mental health pieces, but we also produce nonprofit leaders. So we're able to also work with our nonprofit groups that provide services for our BiGI families and collectively work through the challenges that they experience on a daily basis. So utilizing students, families, educators, local businesses, community-based organizations, we create a holistic ecosystem of support for our BiGI students and our families. Collectiveness has led to community empowerment and bridge and opportunity gaps. Thinking about this in a global manner, I pulled the statistics about our BiGI students and our BiGI families. Our students represent more than 8 cultural groups, ethnicities, ways of being. In our BiGI group, we have 7 different languages spoken in addition to English, right? Spanish, Swahili, French, Haitian Creole, Somali, and an assortment of others. And we represent multiple countries, not just the US, but Mexico, Ghana, Ethiopia, Somalia, Tanzania, the Democratic Republic of Congo, Haiti, the Philippines, and Central and South America broadly. So we like to think of ourselves in a bubble, but we work not only locally, regionally, but globally. And so this has worldwide relevance to the work that we're doing. When we work with our students, understanding their refugee background and what their families are experiencing, this last year, we've experienced tremendous rains here in the Southern California area. And knowing that some of our students and some of our families were unhoused for months at a time, that their homes were ruined by the rains, and there was no opportunities to move back. Thinking through the challenges in the ecosystems of support that we have, leaning on Monarch School, which I am now a member of the board because I met a stranger who asked me to join. Right? But building these types of ecosystems of supports for our students and for our families is critical and important. In conclusion, I wrote a bomb conclusion. I'll read it to y'all. Actually, you know what? Let me not read it to y'all. Let me show y'all. We have thought through what are the things that have made our program successful. Right now, we have recruited more than 120 kids to work in this, and by the time we're done, we hope to have more than 420 students. Those students, if we're blessed, we hope will become toreros. I got 10 minutes, all right. We hope that they will come here and bless us with their presence and continue to work in this, in the work that we do. But effective preparation for success, right? We work with our students. We learn from the parents what strategies they need in order to become successful and to navigate the challenges of schooling and the schooling process. We try to exemplify inclusive leadership. Sometimes we fail, but it's always a goal of ours, and thinking through how we work with the families, how we work with the communities. And then also, this serves as a model for others. We're hoping that this is something that can be replicable across the country. We have a similar model where I'm from in South Central Los Angeles, and I'm hoping that as the word spreads, we can develop more assets-based approaches to doing the work with our students. And I want to share this beautiful scene with you all. We have what we call an induction ceremony, where we come to celebrate all of the complexities and multifaceted complexities of the cultures of our students.
And I have the blessed honor to welcome you to the Black InGenius Initiative second induction ceremony, welcoming our new 6th grade class.
Well, thank you so much for listening to me. I know that was a lot. I could talk about this all day long. And this is just one of the initiatives that we have, but I understand we're taking questions now, so I get to sit? Yay, all right.
Who wants to go first? Okay. So I wrote down this one
Okay.
because I'm interested in learning pathways in general for a whole host of reasons. Could you give us an example of one such learning pathway that helps students transition from one level to another? You mentioned it as one of your...
It helps them transition, I'm sorry.
So one of your points was you have learning pathways that help students transition from one level to another.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Can you give an example of one?
So within SLCE, we have a lot of different institutes and centers. And two of our centers, one is a Center for Embodied Equity and Neurodiversity, and we also have the Jacobs Institute for Innovation and Education. The research that we do through SEEN, the Center for Embodied Equity, speaks to the types of strategies that we can use in order to understand how to work with neurodiverse learners. That includes children who've experienced trauma, right? The other piece of this that I didn't mention is that something else that we've learned from the research is that the adults that work with these kids, many of us, like myself, which is why it was so important for you all to understand my positionality and my identity, we've experienced trauma in our own lives. And so we're drawn to these professions because we want to help. We want to make sure no other kid experiences what we've experienced. And so many of us have unresolved trauma ourselves. So sometimes the block for learning is not with the child. Sometimes the block to learning is embedded within us as the adult. We get triggered because they engage in some way that reminds you of your alcoholic father, or they have said something that triggers you and reminds you of something that you've experienced. And then the learning stops because I have not dealt with my own trauma, my own baggage, to be able to engage with the student where they are. So one pathway has nothing to do with the students and has everything to do with the work that we do with the adults in order for us to recognize the way that we challenge or stop learning in our classrooms or in our community settings because of what we bring to the table. So that's one. Another way, through our Jacobs Institute, we have found that, the linear way of thinking and learning only works for certain types of students. And if you're fortunate enough to train yourself to think and learn in those linear ways and to be able to present what you know in those very linear ways, filling out worksheets, repetition or memorization, right? Then you become what people label as smart. What we have found at the Jacobs Institute, that all of our students are smart, but they exhibit their learning in different ways. So we engage in work where they do mathematics through the use of origami, right? And being able to use different pathways and different mechanisms to be able to not only engage in the work, but also express what they're learning in new and different ways.
Oh, so there is a question from, sorry. Good, can I just throw one more in?
Sure.
While I read the other. From the cohort of students that have been involved in BiGI from the beginning, how many of them have transitioned from, if any, have transitioned from high school into a college or?
So, so this is the second year of BiGI. So the model works like this. We know from the research that student academic attainment drops off between 5th and 6th grade. And so we recruit rising 5th graders, and that is when we enter their lives, right? We keep them and keep working with them until they get to 12th grade. We're now have 6th graders and we have 7th graders. But the reason we know this model is successful is because it's actually based on a model called the Neighborhood Academic Initiative, which has been in place in South LA at the University of Southern California for more than 30 years. And currently, the executive director of that program was also an NAI student and graduate. So, and a graduate from the University of Southern California. So, yes, absolutely. So this is based on a model that we've known for decades is successful. And that's the thing, right, that really still gets me. This is not rocket science, right? We have models out there for generations that we know have been successful in working with students from marginalized and economically oppressed communities, right? My dissertation was on schools where the majority of the students come from marginalized communities that were economically oppressed, right? That the majority of the students were second language learners, yet they were academically successful. I found 3 in California at that time, and that was 20 years ago. So if they're doing it without excuses, what's everybody else's excuse? Is it that we're not paying attention? Is it that we're not looking at what is successful? Is it that we're so busy trying to do our own thing that we refuse to look at other models that other people of color have developed in their own communities? Because NAI was created by a Black woman. Do we turn an eye to that program because of who created it and who it's for? So.
Okay, they're coming in fast and furious now.
Okay, sorry.
Can you expound on why it is so important to include families in your work with students?
Absolutely. And so I was a doctoral student at USC, and I was able to work firsthand with the Neighborhood Academic Initiative. And one of the things that I noted is that as the students progressed through the program, they became more sophisticated in advocating for themselves. But guess what? The schools require that their guardians, their parents, come into the office and advocate for them, right? A lot of times we don't listen to our students. We don't hear their voice. And so in thinking through the Black InGenius Initiative model, I leaned on a model that I saw in Orange County where a group of parents got together, mothers, who wanted to advocate for their kids just came and asked, you know, what are some things that we can do in order to advocate for their kids? And I was like, why don't we do that? Why don't we do that with our caregivers? So we open the floor and we bring the caregivers in and we talk to them about what are the things that they need to know, or what are the things that they want to share with us about their experiences. And I'll give you one quick example. We had a student who was about to be expelled. He had a vape pen in the bathroom and he got caught, right? So the parent in the past would have said, oh, shame on you. Go ahead and expel him because he needs to learn. But now that she has been talking to other parents and networking and connecting with our colleagues, she knows, we don't do that. That doesn't happen in the country club schools. They get caught in the bathroom with the vape pen. They work to make sure that they meet that kid's needs and they stay in the classroom. So she's like, that's what's gonna happen with my baby. You're gonna work to meet my child's needs and we're gonna figure this out, right? So it's important for the parents to understand that that is the type of power they have. And working with other parents, they empower each other.
What were your first steps when going to ideation, from ideation to execution when you launched the BiGI program?
One more time.
What were your first steps when going from ideation to execution when you launched for the first time?
So the idea was written on a napkin during lunch while we were chit-chatting. So it was spontaneous. I wanted to meet Pam because of all of the work that she had been doing in the community. She had been at the San Diego Foundation just through COVID, and just from her joining it and reorganizing and thinking more thoughtfully about the ways that the foundation uses and utilizes the monies that are given to them has made more of an impact in our region and our community. So I was impressed by that. I was impressed by that outside of the box thinking because I've worked in the nonprofit world for many a decade and I've never seen that at a community foundation ever. If they want to give money to a left-handed cellist and they can't find one for 10 years, guess what? That money just sits there, right? That's not what's happening here. And so I just had lunch with her and I said, I think you're fabulous. I just want to know how I can be down, right? This is who I am. This is what I have to give. How can I work with you? Do you have any issues that you think that I can help you think through? And she said, yes. We just received $1.5 million in support of understanding why our Black students in the San Diego area are not achieving academic success to the same degree as the other subgroups of students, right? Even those other students who are from marginalized communities. Something is going on. And so I was like, I know what it is. It's called benign neglect, right? Sometimes we don't think of our Black students as coming from refugee families, coming from different experiences, coming from different countries, right? The word Black kind of masks the complexities of the Black community, right? And the differences within the Black community and the needs within the Black community. We don't see them as having second language issues. So they end up being separated from the supports that they actually need to be successful. And so once we started talking about that, I then remembered the NAI success. We pulled up the records. I called the person that I used to work with, and we built BiGI from that. We added the family component because we understood how important family was to our success as Black women. So we added that piece.
Thank you. What challenges have you experienced in building equitable collaborations with community partners in your work, and how have you addressed them?
So it's really important, I have found, in all of my years in working with nonprofits and working in globally in these ways, is having your own understanding or your own philosophy of this work. We talked a lot about how an assets-based approach for us is important. It's important for us to work with community partners that understand we're not doing work to our community members. We're working with our community members. That means they too are ideating with us, right? The parent component of BiGI was developed by the caregivers that come every month. And every month it changes because new caregivers come into the group and some move out of the group, right? But it comes from the group. And so understanding what our philosophy is and our orientation to the work first is really important, because then we can collaborate with those who understand. Maybe they don't have an understanding or an assets-based approach, but they want to learn, right? So I find that is the initial key to developing more successful collaborations.
Thank you. And for what's looking like the penultimate question, can you speak to the importance of interdisciplinarity and community engagement in your work?
Absolutely. So just thinking about the Black InGenius Initiative, understanding the complexity of the students that we attract to the program, students from all different school districts that have different foci to their work, school districts that are oriented towards student success, school districts that are oriented towards just getting the students through. Also working within SLCE and understanding the work of Jacobs Institute and having that STEM focus, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, but also from a culturally sustaining perspective, right? So when I went and spoke to my colleague in engineering here, Dr. Chell Roberts, who is the Dean of Engineering, really, culturally sustaining is something that they're working towards. They have colleagues on board that is supporting and thinking through what this looks like. They actually have a program that is for Black engineers. It's called NSBE. So we were able to create an interdisciplinary collective where we hired their NSBE undergraduate students to be pod leaders for our BiGI students. So now you have the littles, right, who have these college students who look like them and embody their communities, saying, you can do this. I'm here, so you're here. It also is mutually beneficial for us here at USD because our undergraduate students who are part of NSBE, USD is an emerging Hispanic serving institution. So our numbers of diversity are growing every day, but it's still predominantly white institution. And so our NSBE students, our undergraduate students, knowing that it is important for them to be here. It is important for these 6th and 7th graders to see me here, doing this work, being successful, calling myself a scientist, calling myself an engineer.
The last one, and it may come in 2 parts.
Okay.
If it were possible for me to hand you by January 1st, $5 million US to use on the BiGI initiative, how would you prioritize those resources?
Yeah. So right now, the work of the caregivers is all voluntary. The folks that come and work with the caregivers themselves, they come, some of them sacrificing work to be there, to learn and think and grow together. I would definitely use a portion of that money to support the collective effort and energy of the caregivers in thinking about how to better advocate for their students. Would be one of the main components. Because not only do they learn to advocate for their child or the person that they're responsible for, but then they go and they talk to their friends and they talk to other caregivers at the school. And so the effect, the impact is infinite. So that's one of the things that I would work through. The other things that I would work to is really engaging and fortifying the work to build out our cohorts. We're working now through our third cohort. We need to get all the way up to 12th grade, right? And so fortifying some sort of an endowment that would allow us to continue to do this work indefinitely so that the students know that it will always be here, it will always be part of the community, would be my second priority.
Okay, part B. I'm just processing the responses as well, so that's why I struggle with multitasking. I'm supposed to ask the questions, listen
Well, my
attentively.
question is, does it have to be limited to $5 million US dollars? Like, can we expand that to like 25 million US dollars? We could name it, right? We can name it Darren's Black InGenius Initiative. I'm just saying.
If I had the money, you wouldn't have to name it. No. The second part is, so if as a condition, you were required to spend some of that money on another related or similar initiative, you have a partner in mind?
Yes. We have a program that we are growing and thinking about right now at USD called Coming to Believe. And it is the process of building a community college on our four-year campus, specifically for communities that BiGI serves. So students who need to transition from a high school experience and might not have a BiGI program to help them, because we talked about, preparedness is a huge barrier to accessing higher education. I would definitely invest in building a Coming to Believe community college here at the University of San Diego so that we could have a bridge for our community members to come to USD through that model.
Okay, so if I had the resources, based upon your responses, $25 million would do it. Easy to say, hey?
Thank you.
Thank you, Kimberly. Very inspiring. If nobody has any other questions or comments? Oh, there aren't any more. Oh, cool. Oh, we're out of time. Oh. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Right, so, hey. Okay, I think